I'm going to teach you how to simplify or reduce, those two words really mean the same thing, fractions to the lowest terms. Okay, what that means is the smallest representation of a fraction we can possibly get. So here I have a fraction called 3/6. Now most of you already know in 5th grade that 3/6 is exactly the same as 1/2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a couple of different methods, and there's tons of different methods out there to simplify or reduce fractions, but probably the two that are the easiest. One way is if you know your multiplication facts really well, and the other way is if you're still having a hard time with your multiplication facts. Alright, so here's the first one, 3/6. Now my question I ask to you is, what number can divide evenly into both 3 and 6 besides the number 1? Well, if you know your multiplication facts, you know that 3 goes into both of these numbers. So what we're going to do then is we're going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3, because it's the biggest number that divides equally into both of them. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, so our lowest, or our reduced to the simplest form, or simplified, would be 1/2. And you guys know that 3/6 is the same as 1/2. Okay, so that was kind of a simple one to start off with. But what I want to show you now is how can we use a times table chart for the same thing. Okay, so our original fraction was 3/6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan every row here and try to find where a row has both 3 and 6. Okay, well this one does. And if I scroll farther down, this one does. And nowhere else does. Okay, so 3/6 was our original fraction. Now I want to go to the bottom row of where both 3 and 6 is in. And then all I have to simply do is look straight ahead. Okay, so 3/6 is the same as 1/2. That's the way you can use times tables for that. Okay, let's try another one. 8/24. Okay, I want to know what the biggest number that divides equally into both of these numbers, 8 and 24. Well, if you know your multiplication times tables, you know that 8 can go into both 8 and 24. So we're going to divide the top and bottom by 8. And that would equal 8 divided by 8 is 1. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So 8/24 is equivalent to 1/3. Now what if I messed up and instead of choosing 8, I looked at it and I said, oh, well, I think 4 goes into both of these. Okay, not all's lost here. So if you divided by 4 instead of 8, you got 2 and 6. But now, after I reduce or I simplify and I look at my answer here, I have to ask myself one more time, is there a number besides 1 that divides equally into both 2 and 6? Well, yes, 2 goes into both of them. So I divide the top and the bottom by 2 again, and I still get 1/3. Okay? Now if I choose the biggest one, I just have to do it in one step. If I don't choose the biggest one, then I got to divide, and then divide again, and who knows, sometimes maybe even divide again. A lot of times when, or all the time, if you see a 1 on the top of a fraction like this, then it is simplified. There's no way it can go any further because the only thing that goes into 1 is 1. Okay? And dividing by 1 is just wasting our time because it's not going to change. Alright, so let's try the multiplication times table here. Our fraction was 8/24. Okay, so I'm going to go down through here and I'm going to find the lowest row that has both 8 and 24. Okay, this one does and this one does. If I look even farther, this one does and this one does. Now if I look even farther yet, there's another one here. Okay, so I'm not going to use these upper ones and get rid of them. I'm going to use the farthest one down I can find. Alright, so now all I have to simply do is look up to the top numbers here and that is our reduced fraction. So 8/24 is the same as 1/3. And if you look back here, it is. It's the same as 1/3. Okay, let's try one more. 15/45. So right away when you see fives at the end, a lot of kids are thinking, oh, that would be divide by 5. And I would agree with that. Okay, so if I divide by 5 on both of them, 15 divided by 5 is 3. 45 divided by 5 is 9. Now we always have to ask ourselves the question, is there anything that goes into the top and bottom number here besides 1? And yes, there still is. 3 can go into both of these. So I got to divide it again. So we divide by 3, divide by 3, and I get 1/3 again. Okay, so if I take a look at my times table chart, and once again, remember if the top number is a 1, it's reduced. It's simplified. There's nothing that goes into 1 and 3 besides 1. Okay, so I'm looking at 15/45. Okay, so I got to find 15 and 45. So there's 15 and 45. And looks like that's everywhere, doesn't it? Okay, so if I look above, I got 3/9. Okay, but now 3/9 isn't reduced. Well, how do I reduce it again? Well, just keep looking down until now our fraction is 3/9. And let's find, here's 3 and 9. And I don't think there is anywhere else. So if I look straight above now, these are now gone. The answer is 1/3. Okay? So those are just a couple of methods that you can use to simplify or reduce fractions.